Good afternoon, this is Josh Ellsworth with Stahls TV, and welcome to this live class presentation on the top challenges of startup decorators. And this one is a unique topic where we're covering challenges and really questions. So I've prepared a bit of a presentation on what I think the top challenges are and just offering some advice for you when you're starting your business or when you're really in the infant stages of your business. But as always, this is interactive, so if you have specific questions, please feel free to chat those into the questions box through the GoToWebinar client. We have Karen Ross that will be helping take some of those questions and direct them in throughout the presentation. So without further ado, we're going to jump right into the presentation screen so I can walk through the top challenges of a startup decorator. So, Karen, do you mind sharing the results of the poll as well, so I can figure out how long everybody's been in business?
Sure. 0% were just starting out, 25% were less than 12 months, 0% were 1 to 3 years, and 75% were 3 or more years.
Okay, good. So, as always, startup is sort of a relative term, so some of you that have been in business for 4, 5, 6 years may consider yourself still a startup, and some of these tips will undoubtedly apply to you as well. So welcome and thanks all for attending. So any good business, one of the key things is cash flow. So as I step through the majority of my suggestions, in order to succeed in business, the goal for most, unless it's a particular cause, is to earn cash and to make money. So a lot of the recommendations that I'll walk through here today have to deal with making money in the business. And one of the top challenges of a startup decorator is that they overinvest cash or start before they have enough cash flow in the business to really fund things like inventory of garments or supplies and materials, and really often overinvest in startup equipment and space and really get over their head with overhead expense from wanting a retail location to maybe perhaps going too big to start. So one of the things that I recommend for a startup decorator is to be as lean as possible, meaning finding the right partner to contract work out to rather than investing in all technology in-house. Perhaps starting in the home or in some sort of smaller office environment rather than investing in a large space that's really going to bury you in a lease payment that's required every month. So cash flow is key, and as we go throughout today's presentation, you'll see a lot of that. Now, we focus on this a lot at Stahls TV, is basically educating on the value and the benefit of specific pieces of equipment and really what they can do for the business, and focusing a lot on ROI. But if you only read the publications or you only follow certain websites or certain vendors, you'll hear that technology is often presented as a one-size-fits-all. And what I would caution you as you work to make the right investment for your business is investing in the right technology. So, for instance, direct-to-garment printing, as we've sort of tried to show here, would be like a square peg in a round hole for an athletic apparel line. Meaning direct-to-garment printing still has some limitations with what it can do on a lot of the items that may be necessary to decorate for a sporting goods company. So while if you have a high volume of t-shirts, direct-to-garment printing can be a great solution, if you're into synthetics and performance wear and team uniforms and you're working a lot with athletic apparel, it's not a one-size-fits-all solution where DTG is the absolute proper choice. And I just don't want to pick on direct-to-garment printing here. It's overall selecting the proper print technology. Direct-to-garment printing powers some of the top e-commerce sites out there in the country, the t-shirt makers that do mass customization. So it is a viable, good technology. It's just not the right fit, perhaps, for an athletic brand. Consequently, you look at a t-shirt maker that wants to do very light, soft t-shirts and perhaps print cut, or a technology like that is not a proper fit for decorating full front, high color, high detailed graphics on the front of t-shirts. So what works for one business doesn't necessarily work for you. So starting with a proper plan of exactly what market you're going to reach, what you're going to make, will help to fuel your decision and direct your decision into smart technology, because ultimately I think you're going to be limited as far as what you can bring in-house unless you have unlimited funds, and you'll really make smarter decisions by selecting the right technology and finding partners to fulfill some of the void areas. So making sure that you invest in right technology, always a big deal. You don't want to make that mistake out of the gate and bury your business in expense and equipment before it can start. Secondly, the thing I want to cover is getting costs correct. So this is really a two-part, and I'm going to spend a fair amount of time here, because one of the top challenges of a startup decorator is not only finding out what something costs, but being able to set their selling price and really factoring all of the components into getting costs correct. So in order to set a price, you have to truly understand costs, and some of our most watched videos on Stahls TV focus on how to calculate cost accurately. So when you look at the cost equation, basically you're looking at three parts. You're looking at direct cost, which are the costs that go into manufacturing the product. So this would be your labor that goes into manufacturing the product, as well as your landed cost of a t-shirt or of a decoration that's going to be applied to the t-shirt. All of those manufacturing expenses go into your direct costs. Then you have your indirect costs, which is going to hit a lot of your basically overhead expense. So your payment into your lease, your electricity, perhaps your selling wages and commissions and compensation. All of that indirect cost will start to be calculated as overhead. So overhead can be applied to absolutely every order as a percentage of the sale or at a rate of your direct costs. So it's just important that you understand that we're going to capture direct costs and we're going to capture indirect costs or overhead as a percentage of getting costs correct. So it's very important to get that. And once you start to get that, I like to illustrate a little bit of this for those of you with a vinyl cutter. I'm going to pull up a spreadsheet here that will show you exactly some tips for how to calculate that. And this is a free tool. If you cut heat transfer film, it's a great tool. It's available on Stahls TV under our resources section. It's a free download that allows you to start to enter some of this. So you can enter a shop's overhead percentage, whatever the overhead percentage is for your shop, and we have tutorials on Stahls TV that will teach you exactly how to calculate that overhead percentage. And since we're applying overhead to every order, it's great because it's represented, and this is where sort of starting lean will help you compete against perhaps the big shop with a lot of overhead. So if you're a relatively small shop with a small number of employees, you don't want to really go crazy with overhead expense, because you should be applying that to every sale if you're going to make money and maintain cash flow. After that, you try to capture the labor rate that's going to every part of the manufacturing process. Once again, this is capturing my direct expense, my direct labor, in addition to my actual cost of my items that will be in the next step. So let's just say I'm paying myself or an operator $10 to heat press and $10 to weed, which are the majority of the cost in manufacturing a heat-applied film design to go onto apparel. After that, I start to get into the actual direct cost from a material standpoint. And so in this case, I'm going to say that this is a single color design, so there's one cut design per garment. It's just a full front design. It's going to take me 5 minutes to weed the design to prepare it for application, and a minute to heat press. So this is really starting to calculate the labor rate it takes to complete each task. If I'm doing this on a t-shirt, let's say I pay $2.99 for the t-shirt by the time it's landed. So you want to make sure you calculate freight as part of the equation here, because you don't want to lose all of your profit by forgetting to add in the freight it takes to get products to you. And we're going to say we're selling, let's say 24 pieces for this job. At that point, you start to punch in your design dimensions. So if this is a full front design, I'm going to say it's 8 by 10, and it'll instantly calculate out the cost for me at the 3 steps of the process. So I can see that if I were to cut this out of, let's say, fashion film, which is a great product, our top selling product for t-shirts, I can see the material cost on that fashion film for that design size with a 15% waste added is going to be 91 cents. The heat press labor cost is 17 cents. The weeding cost is 83 cents. The overhead is actually 50 cents, 49 cents, so you don't want to miss adding that. And then my garment cost, of course, carries over to $2.99, giving me a total cost of $5.39 to complete that piece with everything included. So then it's going to multiply that by my total number of pieces to give me my total job cost. Now, before I go too much further in this process and talk about taking that cost and then figuring out how you set a selling price and giving you some tips there to make sure we're doing that correctly, I'm going to pause to see if there are any questions coming in, Karen.
Is that sheet available, and if so, where can your viewers find it?
Okay, so let me just pull that up here. So if you go to stahlstv.com, it's free to register, so log on to stahlstv.com. We have all of our helpful videos and archived classes here. But if I click on resources, once you log in, you can click on the Ultimate CAD Cut Cost Calculator, tongue twister there, and ultimately once you're registered you can just click download and get this for free, or once you're logged into Stahls TV, and then here's a full tutorial on how to use it that goes into greater detail than I was able to go in during this class. So it's free for you to help you grow your business. Okay, I think that's all the questions for now. So let me jump back over to the PowerPoint and let's talk about setting selling prices. And really, bad pricing is an epidemic that leads to out of business. So if you're not valuing your work and pricing properly, you're going to be in trouble in the long term. And that's one of the top challenges of a startup decorator. How much does it cost me and what should I sell it for? If you don't get those two things right, it's going to be dangerous. So what I've done here is I've come up with a couple different jobs that where I did a two-color heat transfer film design out of fashion film. You can see the design sizes and the dimensions and everything there. And ultimately, I ran this through the calculator and figured out this piece is going to cost me $5.35 per piece. The question I have is, what would you sell that for? So if you can take a minute and just type into the input box, what would you sell that piece for? And Karen, as we start to get some responses, if you can just give me sort of the general range of responses here.
$15.
$15? Okay, good. And keep playing along. Let's go to a long sleeve performance t-shirt. This particular piece cost me $9.58 to produce. It's not a regular cotton t-shirt, it's a performance tee. Same design. What would you sell that for?
Between $18 and $25.
Between $18 and $25. Great. All right. And I think there's one more that I want to go through here before I share the one of the points of pricing. This particular piece, we're dealing with a fan jersey now. Once again, same design, same dimensions. It's going to cost me a little bit more to create. What can I sell that for? I've upgraded the finish to glitter flake as opposed to basic fashion film on this particular shirt.
Range was from $24.99 to $28.
24 to 28. Okay, so a good range. And then there was another jacket. We don't have to go through the exercise completely, but the idea here is there was a philosophy that you had, whether it was instinct, hopefully it wasn't just a random guess, but what you felt you could command out of the piece. So it will vary from area to area and business to business. And some people would say, I hear this time and time again, there's no way I can get $15 out of that t-shirt, or there's no way I can get $18 or $25 out of that performance tee. Pricing is based on what you can command in your area, but I think it's very important to have a strategy and an approach to pricing. One of the top challenges is, what is that approach, or how can I do that? So as we start to look at this, I want to caution against a couple different methods that are going to leave you short. And for those of you that have attended one of my classes on pricing before, I commonly say we need to kick the keystone method. Because what it does is it leaves you short, or it leaves you priced out of the market in general. And market pricing is very important for a startup decorator, so you can price and get as much as you can but not be priced out of the market. So on the t-shirt, that would have left us well short of the $15 that we felt we could sell it for. On the performance tee, the keystone method, which is basically doubling your cost, if you're wondering what that means, Basically, we're doubling our cost per piece and setting that as a selling price. That's the keystone method of pricing. It's commonly used. It has been commonly used in the industry for some time, but I think it's an older method to pricing, at least for heat printing. But you can see we start to price ourselves out on the jacket price, and we start to price ourselves a little too low on the t-shirt price. So I would caution you against using this philosophy. Now, a lot of businesses, not only in the apparel world, but just in general, will have a certain markup percentage or a gross profit margin that they want to make on everything they sell. So they'll say something like, I won't accept below 28 points of gross profit margin. And so what you start to do is price things at a minimum then at 28% gross profit margin. And so in decorated apparel specifically for heat printing or embroidery, where it takes the same amount of time for every piece, virtually the same amount of time for every piece, whether you're printing onto a basic t-shirt or you're onto a jacket. There may be a little fluctuation, but it's fairly close. Basically, you leave yourself short once again, because the t-shirt, I'm going to spend the same amount of time that it's going to cost, that's going to take me to do a jacket, but you can see the profit per piece difference on those is substantial. The t-shirt in this method, I'm only going to make a little over $2 per piece. On the jacket, I'm going to make somewhere around $15 per piece. So it's not exactly predictable, and I don't recommend it. What I do recommend is market value and profit per piece win. So what I recommend doing in your business is set a minimum profit that you want to make for every piece that you decorate. This example shows a $10 minimum profit per piece, and then we're adjusting it to market value. Now, so basically we see we're going to sell that t-shirt. I'm not going to spend my time printing that shirt unless I'm making at least $10 in profit back to the business for every piece I lock down on the press. And while it may price me out of the market on some jobs, I'm confident in that because I know that there are going to be other jobs and other opportunities that I can better utilize my time on or my capacity on. Every business, regardless of who you are, you have a certain amount of in-house throughput on your particular equipment and devices you invest in. So you want to make sure you're maximizing the profit on that throughput each day, which will ultimately leave you with more profit per hour to the business, more cash flow at the end of the day. We're going to talk a lot more about this as I go through some of the other tips and really show you how to command a higher profit per piece and how you can make more money on every single job that you print as we go through this. But before we do, I notice there's another question coming in.
Is there any way to compete with companies that sell t-shirts for less than what someone can buy them for?
Okay. And is there any way to compete? And I'd say, yeah, there is. And so I think we're going to go through that over, I don't know if it's the exact next slide, but throughout the next few slides as we start to step through this and formulate a strategy. There's also something that you need to understand is that some people have a business strategy where they're using a particular product, whether that's a cheap t-shirt, a cheap polo shirt, whatever it might be, as what's called a loss leader. And so, you know, you spend X amount of dollars a year in sales and marketing expense. And a lot of folks have taken the strategy where instead of investing X amount of dollars into advertising, paid advertising, whatever it may be, they're going to invest the money in product savings and count that, you know, they're going to get more business through that loss leader by word of mouth advertising because their prices are so cheap, and whatever methods may be able to be possible by that. But the strategy behind a loss leader is I'm going to sell this real cheap. I'm going to sell the basic t-shirt through, you know, at $6, $7 a piece. And then I'm going to take that account. Once I get that customer, that's my cost of acquiring the customer. I'm sacrificing that profit. And now I'm going to sell them everything else I have and sell them futures jobs. Odds are those businesses don't just do t-shirts only. They're using it as a hook to sell everything else that they do. So the question is, can you compete? I suppose it's just making sure you form a business strategy that is you're competing smartly for a greater goal. And we'll go through how to do that. Any other questions, Karen, right now? No? Okay, and so perfect timing. Here we go. Another challenge of a startup decorator is basically fighting competition in their low margin pricing. So taking, like the question we had, taking somebody and saying, I can get it down the street, or I can get it on this website for $6 or $7 for that t-shirt you're trying to sell me for 15, and us, as a decorator, a top challenge of a startup is saying, we'll match it because we want the business. Okay? Once we get into selling commodity products, we increase our competition. So what I would recommend is, rather than getting in that world of price wars, see if you can create yourself a business strategy that allows you to get away from the low margin pricing and the commodity product into higher end products. And so what this has to do with where you find your customers and how you interact with your customers, in addition to your product strategy. So I'm going to go through sort of a 3-step process to address this issue of price war and fighting competition and their low margin pricing, by going through how to find customers that you desire that are going to be profitable customers to your business. Not every customer is a good customer. So 3 steps to success that I've documented here, and we're going to step through each one of these through some slides. Step number 1 is define your target market. Who am I going after? If it's everybody, odds are you're going to basically be in a position where you're not going to do anything extremely well. You're going to do everything okay, and it will be average results, average profit at best. Step number 2 is we want to define an offer. So we want to get out in front of the offer and have a real sales strategy that we're approaching a defined target market with, to ensure profitability, to ensure a good, better, best presentation where we have the option to make profit and take a customer up to more profitable pieces, or down to a budget piece that we still make good profit on, but may be lower priced for them, a value piece. And number 3 is calling and attracting. So after we define the market, after we define the offer, then it's really, how do I connect the offer to my target market, either through an outbound effort or through marketing to bring them in. So let me go through each one of these points in greater details to solve some of these challenges. So the first slide here is define the target market. So I've just listed, a dozen or so target markets that apparel decorators are printing today. You can even get more granular than this, because there's different subsegments and markets within each market as well. So there's different types of restaurants and bars. You may want to target a certain type with a certain product and a certain offer. But what I recommend is that you create sort of mini sales plans geared towards the target market, because the way you approach a hospital is probably going to be a lot different than the way you would approach a dance school and the products that you would show that person. You're probably not going to connect the lace back tank top with glitter flake on it to a hospital. Consequently, you're probably not going to connect the medical scrubs to a dance school. So it sounds basic, but everything from the decoration to the way you present to the way you structure your offer, there's different things that are important to each target market. So a one-size-fits-all approach will leave you short. You really need to target in this day and age, and a lot of the tools online make it possible. Next is ultimately defining an offer and losing sales by selection. We have something for everybody, but nobody can decide. So you get that sales appointment with the hospital, with the dance school, with whoever it is, and then all of a sudden, everything you've ever learned at Stahls TV and all the samples that you ever make or could ever do in your shop come out on the table. And basically, it ends up being a lot of noise for a client where they're not even sure what they should buy and they can't decide. On websites where we flood the page with products and selection, and at the end of the day, we create a confused customer that can't make a buying decision. So there's many studies done on less is more. We refer to it here as good, better, best sales philosophy. So basically, at any point in the process, presenting no more than 3 choices. That means 3 choices of garments, 3 choices of decoration. You start to multiply that, it becomes a lot of choice. Make a streamlined process where we're defining an offer. So an offer can be very simple as you look to define this with the overarching theme that we want to keep things simple. and not let them get lost in selection is, by our target market, we want to showcase some garment styles. It's been proven that if you walk in with a focus sample that's specific to the customer, with their art on the garment, with a style that will appeal to them, you'll be a lot more successful, and your close ratio will go up with different clients. So you want to define the offer. The garment styles that are the choices, the art options that are available, that's inclusive of only design style choices but finishes. You also want to define your pricing and what you're willing to do. By having that done up front, you're a lot less likely to discount and get yourself an uncomfortable margin if you have some basic rules. And then the program. So it's more than just, garment art and pricing. It's really, what's the program? So if I'm approaching a school, am I going to allow them to make a profit back to the PTF or the PTO, whoever it might be, per piece? Am I going to allow them to make X amount of profit and percentage back at different tiers? So really just coming to grips with the offer that you want to extend to that target market. And then point number 3, one of the top challenges of startup decorators is they are absolutely afraid of the phone. Okay? In general, I think people have a phobia of picking up the phone and calling somebody. So there's a lot of new ways out there through Google search, through Facebook, through Instagram, that you can create noise and attract, which is always preferred if they're coming to you. But at the end of the day, if you're selling local in a region and you have a defined target market, if it's hospitals in the area, I can clearly look up hospitals within an X mile radius on Google Maps and create a very specific target list and make phone calls to get appointments. If you're going to rely on those people to find you, odds are a lot of these businesses that are worth having often have relationships already established to order decorated apparel, so you're going to have to go and disrupt. They're not always searching for it. You're going to have to go and disrupt. So one way to do that is by picking up the phone, working to set an appointment, and showing specific samples and having all of that ahead of this that we discussed. Pricing, the offer, the program, the finish options ready to show them. So I recommend not being afraid of the phone. And number 2 is having a definite marketing strategy. So in addition to just the sales offer, you need to call and attract. And there's the marketing programs such as search, which Google AdWords is something that I would recommend researching. If you don't understand it, you can actually target by keywords. When somebody searches customized t-shirts or embroidered shirts, and within an X mile radius of whatever cities you want to target, whether it's your own or another target market, based on your offer, you can really hone in on specific buyers and specific folks that are searching out for customized products. Also, with social, meaning Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, whatever you're plugged into, the people most likely to buy from you are probably your friends and family, or a second or a third degree connection to your friends and family. So by being able to post virtual samples and looks and items we could create, or perhaps a PDF of our offer and our program on places like Facebook, and encouraging folks to share them, having a defined call to action to get leads is a great way. So really, you're just going to have to grind it out to find customers in the infant stages, and not think that if you build it, they will come. You're going to have to work for it. So ideally, you would be strong in sales. And if not, here's the next point. The top challenges of too many decorators is having to wear too many hats. So if you're one person or a very small shop, odds are you have to do more than just sell. You have to do more than just production. When you really look at taking the business from where it is today to your dream of where you want the business to go, or even the steps along the way to achieving that goal, you really won't get there by doing everything yourself. So understanding that delegating is okay, that contracting out is okay. Yes, you can probably make the sale at better than somebody else that you would hire or bring on. but the idea that if you start to develop people and train people, if somebody can do the work at 50% of what you think you can do it, it's worth delegating. That's a good general rule of thumb. Yes, if you produce it in-house, I can probably save 30%, 40% on my decoration versus if I order out and have somebody else produce it for me. But are you really measuring the opportunity cost or just the true cost? What are you losing in long term for the business by trying to do everything for yourself? So what I would really recommend doing is figuring out where you're best in these core disciplines and where you can potentially have somebody that can help you, whether you bring them into the business at a contract rate or whether you just send it out altogether and find a third party to work with. But doing all this won't allow you to scale the business. And that sort of brings me back to my last point before I take some questions. It's cash flow, cash flow, cash flow, cash flow. Can't say it enough. The business plan is the beginning. So figuring out who you will be, what you will be, and ultimately who you will sell to. If you've already been in business for 4 or 5 years and you don't have a business plan, why not try creating one, at least a sales strategy for this year. We're only in February now, so it's not too late to come up with a 2016 model where you can set some goals and objectives and ultimately who you want to sell to. And of course, we hope to be able to continue to help you at Stahls TV through classes like this, and we have many tutorials online that go through more than what you found. And so to close off before I take the questions, let me give you just 7 random tips and tricks that I would recommend to sort of button this thing up. Number 1 is focus on the average sale or the average customer size. These are metrics that will allow you to focus on ways to grow the business with existing customers or opportunities that are in front of you. So by focusing on an average sale, you should naturally create a benchmark and try to increase your average sale, which will put you in the mode of coming up with ways to upgrading existing customers' orders, whether that's upgrading by going to a new finish or a nicer garment, going from a better to a best, whether that's upgrading by adding an additional placement or brand logo somewhere else on the garment that they're ordering, or it could be adding an accessory item like a hat, a keychain, a mouse pad, whatever it might be, as a package and a bundle rather than just a single item. Second part of number 1 is, in addition to the average sale, focus on the average customer size. So by focusing on the average customer size, you'll find yourself finding ways to sell more to each customer, really cultivating the relationship and building a more successful customer. You've already worked hard and paid the expense to bring the customer in. You've already made the cold call or spent the advertising dollars to bring them in. Now we might as well explore and see what other opportunities there are with them. So having a plan to increase your average customer size. Number 2, focus on referrals. The best conversion rate and the best lead is really a referral. So make it possible for satisfied customers to refer business to you and figure out a way that they can do that, whether it's you drop a business card into it or a little note that says the best way to say thanks is a referral, and ask them to hand the business card on. 3, manage a sales pipeline. Nothing worse than dropping the ball on an opportunity that could have been something great. Once again, you've spent the money to bring in the lead. Managing a sales pipeline basically means after I quote, after I send the sample, I have a defined schedule for follow-up that brings every single inquiry to a closed won, meaning they bought, or a closed loss status. When you lose them, note the reason, because as you're refining your sales strategy and your business model every year, you should be going back to understand why you won and why you lost, just like a good coach of a team would, to figure out what you're going to do differently moving forward and how you're going to change your business for the better. Number 4, strategize about selection. As we mentioned, the good, better, best is great. How are you going to incorporate simplified selection to help you win more sales? Number 5 is personalized sampling yields return. Folks, this is heat printing. I know the majority of you are in the heat printing business. That's why you watch Stahls TV, or the embroidery business. Being able to take a customer's logo and actually put it on a shirt as their sample or have it decorated for their sales call is going to leave you a much better close rate. Number 6 is education is inexpensive and build rapport. So basically the idea that It's really inexpensive to shoot a YouTube video that explains the differences between a performance polo, a regular polo, and maybe an economy polo. So being able to really establish yourself as more of a consultant, whether it's a logo consultant, a decorated garment consultant to your customer, helps to build that relationship. And all of a sudden, as rapport goes up, price negotiation goes down because trust is established. So having your customers trust you before you get to price will go a long way to allowing you to make more money and keep cash flow. And lastly, a real simple one is show samples. There's nothing worse than going to a sales call or somebody coming to a booth or your particular place of business and not being able to see samples. So I recommend doing a lot of sampling to customers and showing the products, because they really come to life when a customer can either try them on or feel or see the finish. All right, we're going to switch back to the main camera and go through some question and answers here. Any questions coming in, Karen?
Do you have any advice for viewers who are printing designs upside down or crooked? Is there a way for them to avoid that in the future?
So I guess when you're printing stuff and it's crooked or upside down, there's a couple different ways you can go. We have a lot of tips and tricks on this, but number one, a laser targeting system helps. We call our system the laser alignment system. It's a standalone device you can put next to your heat presses to shoot crosshairs or 4 different line lasers and adjust them on the press. That's going to help you put stuff straight after you measure one, line up the lasers, and then every other one in the job goes into the same place. Printing it upside down, I guess I would just say double check and understand if you're threading your garment upside down, you're going to have to place your transfer upside down every time. So just double checking on that. What other questions?
Do you have any thoughts on creating a 2 to 3 page catalog to send to targeted customers?
I like the idea. I always think market specific stuff helps. It's just like defining your target. So, you know, I've had success stories from decorators that have done single page PDFs and have swore up and down that the physical copy of the PDF helped the school sell it better or the concept come to life better than a web experience would have. So yeah, I think it's a phenomenal idea to have a sort of micro catalog, if you will, that's targeted towards the particular customer base you're going after. Yeah, good idea. All right, anything else right now? No, we're clear. All right, so once again, hopefully this has helped you whether you're an experienced decorator or a startup. And as always, we have a live class schedule of upcoming classes and archive classes on stahlstv.com. This one will be on there probably at this point tomorrow for you to watch. I'm Josh Ellsworth with Stahls TV. Thanks for attending today.